Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to have a session on analytical epidemiology. Till now, you have completed basic principles of epidemiology and you have learned classification and descriptive epidemiology. And we have reached an important stage, that is analytical epidemiology. In this analytical epidemiology, today we are going to learn case control studies and that too a part of the case control studies. This is a very important chapter, and in fact every part of epidemiology is very important, and you have to pay very attention to learn this case control studies. So in this case control studies we have the steps, that is selection of cases and controls, matching, measurement of exposure, and analysis and interpretation, followed by bias and advantages and disadvantages. Let us see what is this analytical studies. Analytical studies are second major type of epidemiological studies after descriptive epidemiological studies. In contrast to descriptive studies, where we just observe the procedure or we do not intervene in any of the disease occurrence, whereas here we are going to look at the subjects of interest. That is, in descriptive epidemiology, population is our interest, but here individuals of the population are our interest. And the objective is not to formulate an hypothesis, but to test the hypothesis. In descriptive epidemiology, that helps us in formulation of hypothesis, whereas in analytical epidemiology, we test the hypothesis. So, although individuals are evaluated in these studies, inference is not to the individuals but to the population from whom we have selected them. I hope you understand the point. That is, though we are studying on the individuals in analytical studies, but the inference is applicable to the population from whom we have drawn this particular selected group of individuals. Now, analytical studies are of two types. That is, the first one is case control studies and cohort studies. Now, from each of these study designs, what we can determine is whether there is any statistical association or not between the disease and a causative factor, or we call it as a suspected factor. And if there is an association existing, what is the strength of that association? Is it good, bad, poor? So these things we will be understanding or we will be determining from these study designs. Let us see. I have given you here case control studies is also called as retrospective study. If you see the here, I have given you down, time is showing you the arrow from left to right. Whereas in the case control studies, if you see, it is going from right to left. That is, we are selecting from cases and controls. Who are the cases? Individuals with particular disease, and controls are individuals without that particular disease. And we are going back to see whether the factors are present or absent. In the cohort studies, is the other way around, that we will see in when we go to the cohort studies. So come to the case control studies. They are also called as retrospective studies. So case control studies are one of the frequently used study design due to its relative ease of its application in comparison with the other study designs. So it is more easier and more applicable and most widely followed. Now, case control studies start with the identification of the cases, that is, individuals with that particular disease in a given population, and a group of controls, that is, individuals without that disease who are to be included in the study. So, the cases are the people or the individuals with the disease, and controls are without disease. So, if you see the design here, I have given you a picture. Have given you where cases and controls both are drawn from the study population. So from this population we have taken cases, that is people with the disease, and controls people without disease. In this we are going to study who are exposed, who are not exposed, and in controls also who are exposed and who are not exposed. This is going to be the study design. Now, case control method has three distinct features. That is, both exposure and outcome have occurred before the start of the study. That means we are going retrospectively. I mean, already the disease has happened, and even the exposure has also happened. Because of the exposure only he got the disease. So we are going back to see whether that particular patient who's been, that particular individual with the disease has the same exposure or not. And then the study proceeds backwards from effect to cause. Third, it uses a control or a comparison group to support or refute an inference. These are the three distinct features of case control studies. Let us come to the basic steps. First step is selection of cases and controls. Second step is matching. Third is measurement of exposure and analysis and interpretation. Fourth one is selection of fourth one is analysis. Now coming to the selection of cases and controls. First step is to identify a suitable group of cases and a group of controls. Now here you can see two things. One is cases and controls. So let us deal first with the selection of cases. Now when we go for the selection of cases, before we select the cases, we have to define what is a case. That is called as a case definition, which is very crucial in a case control study. It involves two specifications. That is, number one, diagnostic criteria and eligibility criteria. So let us see what is first diagnostic criteria. It is essential that the case definition is clearly defined at the outset of the investigation. That means when you are about to start the investigation, you have to define the case, and based upon that definition, we will select all the cases. So based upon the diagnostic criteria, you will decide what all cases will be included in the study. And once the diagnostic criteria is established, it should never be altered or changed till the study is done. Study, for example, I have given as breast cancer stage 1. So I have defined what all findings will be seen in that stage 1, and only if those findings are there and if those findings are seen in the individual, then only we can select that as a case. So let us see the eligibility criteria. A criteria customarily employed is the requirement that only newly diagnosed cases, that is called incidence cases, or within a specified period of time, or old cases, that is cases in advanced stages of the disease. That means either we can select incident cases or prevalent cases. Now let us see the incident cases. The use of incident cases is considered as a preferential because it is better that you can avoid or you can save from recall bias. That is, you have to see recall of the past exposure and maybe more accurate among newly diagnosed cases, because suppose if the case is happened recently, that patient will remember what are the sequence of event that has happened in the near past, so that he can tell you better. Whereas if you take the prevalent cases, that we will see later. So in addition, the temporal sequence of exposure and the disease is easier to assess among the incidence cases. So he can recall easily. So he does not have to take lot of efforts or maybe to remember or maybe to forget. So incident cases are preferably better than prevalent cases. Let us see the prevalent cases. Now here what happens, comprise individuals who have had the outcome under investigation for some time back. So the use of prevalent cases may give rise to recall bias because he has to remember. Suppose this patient is been having this particular disease for quite some time. So he will not remember all the sequence of events that are happened. He will have to remember and then tell us. So in the process, what happens? There is a possibility of the individual to have the recall bias. So he might tell us less accurately and whatever happened in the past. So that is why they say incident cases are preferable than prevalent cases. Now coming to the sources of cases. Now, cases may be recruited from a number of sources. That is, for example, if you see hospital, clinic, general population, registers, or any of the population bases. So, the population based case control studies are generally more expensive and are difficult to conduct, because that we will see how it is. Because population based studies will have to cases and controls getting is more difficult. That we will see later. Now coming to the selection of controls. A particular problem inherent in case control studies is selection of controls. Now this is why population based studies are difficult. Controls must be free from the disease under study. They must be as similar to the cases as possible except for the disease under absence of disease under study. That means cases and controls should be very similar in all the aspects except that disease under study. It should be there in cases, but it should not be there in the controls. Now, sources of controls. The possible sources can be hospitals, relatives, neighbors, and general populations. Now, let us see the hospital controls. May be selected from the same hospital as we have selected the cases, but with different illnesses other than the study disease. Usually, it is unwise to choose a control group from hospitals, because what happened, there is something called a selection bias. Now, because ideally the control should have undergone the same diagnostic procedures as the cases, but it should have negative. That means that person should not have the condition under investigation. So we usually, what happens, that we'll try to select patients who had come for some other problem, and then we will have some bias. That is called a selection bias. So usually hospital controls are not much preferred. Coming to relatives, the controls may also be taken up from relatives, that is spouses, siblings. Now, sibling controls are unsuitable for genetic conditions if that is under study. Now, neighborhood controls and general population. The ideal control group would comprise a random sample from the general population that gave rise to the cases. That means, ideally, the same population from whom we have drawn the cases, or from whom we have selected the cases, or maybe the population base which has produced these cases, should be given the controls also. For example, if the cases are selected from a defined population such as GP register, that is general practice register, general population register, then controls should be from the same general population register. That is how it should be. Okay, now coming to the matching. Now let us see what is this matching. It is the process by which we select controls in such a way that they are similar to cases with regard to certain pertinent selected variables, that is age, sex, whichever, which are known to influence the outcome of disease, and which, if not adequately matched for comparability, could distort or confound the results. For example, if I see, now if I am going to find out the relationship between diabetes in certain population, and if I want to select a patient from the population, and if I keep the age group from 20 to 60, and if I select the cases more of say 50 to 70, I mean 50 to 40 to 60, and my controls are from 20 to 40, is it comparable? No, because it is not matched properly. That means I have to take both cases and controls of the same age group, so that this age itself will not be a factor. So it should not become. So that becomes a confounding factor, that we will come later. An important consideration is to ensure comparability between cases and controls. Now here comes the confounding factor. What is the confounding factor? It is a factor which is associated both with exposure and disease, and is distributed unequally in the study and control groups. More specifically, a confounding factor is one that, although associated with exposure under investigation, is itself, independently of any such association, a risk factor for the disease. That means a confounding factor, though is associated with exposure, but it itself also can be an etiological factor for the disease. So that is confounding factor. For example, in a study, when you are studying the role of alcohol in the esophageal cancer, smoking is a confounding factor, because if you see carefully, it is associated with the consumption of alcohol also, and smoking it itself is also a risk factor for the esophageal cancer. So in these conditions, the effect of alcohol consumption can be determined only if the influence of smoking is neutralized by matching. Okay, in other words, matching process against an unexpected strong association between the matching factor, that is example age, and the disease, that is breast cancer. While matching, it should be taken care that suspected etiological factor should not be matched, because by matching, its etiological factor or its etiological role is eliminated. You should take care. Suppose I've given in the previous example, when you are studying alcohol in esophageal cancer, as I said, smoking is a confounding factor. But you should match only smoking, but you should not match alcohol. Because if you match alcohol also, then there is nothing else you're going to study the suspected factor, that exposure. So it should not be matched, where the alcohol should not be matched, because we are studying that factor, that is a suspected etiological factor. So we should take care, and it should be eliminated that it is not matched. With that, we will stop our session. Tomorrow we will continue with the other two steps, along with bias and advantages and disadvantages. I hope you have understood the class. Please go through it, and we will continue tomorrow. Thank you.